Shashi Tharoor joining us. Shashi, your sense as an opposition leader, how do you react to the budget?
Well, even as I came out of Parliament, I was reacting to the omissions in her speech that she hadn't mentioned Manrega at all, for example. And now we know why. We've just looked at the budget. They've slashed Manrega down to the lowest sum ever allotted to Manrega, 60,000 crores. And this is at a time when experts as recently as last year were saying that the scheme needed 1.4 lakh crores, and where the government had to come back to us just a couple of months ago with a supplementary demand because their last year's budget estimate was not adequate. Now you've seen them slashing it. It makes no sense at all unless they are being ridiculously optimistic that there will be so many jobs coming out of their present budget that people will not be demanding Manrega work. We find that completely unrealistic. Demand is not that much down. It's certainly better than in the pandemic years, but at the same time, there's no question that they've not even been able to give the amount of days of employment that people have been asking for. So that is a big shocker that they've actually cut that down. Generally speaking, it looks like the social security expenditure of the government is down. And we're looking at examples like the National Social Assistance Program, which is down. The ICDS, the Child Development Scheme budget, is unchanged, which means it's reduced in money in real terms because of inflation. The budget of the Women and Child Development Ministry, same as last year, so again reduced in real terms. Maternity benefits have gone. You're looking at really a disaster for our social security system, except, of course, for the 2 lakh crores they've given for the PMG-KAY, which is the old National Food Security Act that they've renamed. So it doesn't look particularly good from the point of view of those in need in our culture, in our country. And then you look at their priorities. They've also slashed the budget of the Ministry of Minority Affairs, and they've slashed the budget of the Ministry of Labour. And that's very interesting. And they've raised defence only, the capital outlay part, not the salaries and revenue, pensions, but the defense capital outlay has gone up so little that it doesn't even fully account for inflation. So their priorities are clearly with an eye on the election, and good for them. That's what governments, I can't blame them for wanting to do that. But it's certainly...
But Mr. Tharoor, hang on. If I could... But you would have argued that if they did have an eye on the election, then they should have been spending more on what are called populist measures. They should have done... The fact that they have focused on infrastructure and other issues is almost strange in a budget which is 1 year before the election. Because you would have expected a lot more social schemes, populist schemes, Manrega spending, all of that in an election year.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't be surprised to see them crawling back to Parliament with supplementary demands, because the amount they've allotted for social security and social welfare is pathetic, as I've already explained. But even on their hiking capital expenditure, Vikram, if you look at this, I accept the proposition that investments in infrastructure and productive capacity can have a large multiplier impact on growth and employment. But the truth is, when you're estimating 7% growth, that really means you're seeing growth slow down, because the first 6 months of the year, we grew at 9.7%. So if we're ending up at 7 for the whole year, that means we're looking at about 4.5% or thereabouts in the second half of the fiscal year. So to begin with, growth hasn't exactly been stimulated by this government's policy so far. Secondly, if you look at the hike in capital expenditure, even in the last couple of budgets, it's not the first time they've increased capital expenditure, Vikram. They've done in each of the last 2 fiscal years. But many state governments have rightly argued this has come at the cost of a reduction in grants to them. And unemployment has continued to rise. So if it's supposed to have this kind of multiplier effect, why hasn't it worked in the last 2 years? I'm sorry to be coming up with a dampener on it. Some of the assumptions are absurdly optimistic.
All right, Dr. Tharoor, thank you so much for joining us with that perspective. Great to hear from you.